Assalamu alaikum dear students, welcome to your channel The Anatomy Canvas. In today's class of neuroanatomy we are going to discuss with the structure and different functions of the thalamus. So the learning outcome for today's class are to enumerate the main components of the diencephalon, then the external features of the thalamus and different nuclear group of the thalamus with their functions and association areas and the tracts which are related with these nuclear groups. So first of all, the diencephalon. The diencephalon consists basically of the two parts, that is the pars distalis and the pars ventralis. So pars distalis in turn consists of thalamus, the metathalamus in which medial and lateral geniculate bodies are included, and epithalamus which include the pineal body, the habenular nucleus, posterior commissure and the stria medullaris thalami. So in this diagram you can see in this area, this is the area of the thalamus, and here you can see posteriorly, here you can see the habenular nucleus which is present along with the posterior commissure and the pineal body and the stria medullaris thalami which are forming the area of the epithalamus. In this area you can see the mammillary body is present. This area is the tuber cinereum, then the stalk of the pituitary gland, the optic tract, the stria terminalis, the anterior commissure which is present over here. This is the location for the foramen of Monro, and this is the area of the hypothalamus. So the pars distalis basically consists of the area of the thalamus, then the medial and lateral geniculate bodies, and then the epithalamus which consists of the pineal body, the habenular nucleus, the posterior commissure and the stria medullaris thalami. Then pars ventralis consists of the area which is the hypothalamus and the subthalamus which is beneath the thalami. So in today's class we are going to discuss in detail the thalamus. So thalamus are the ovoid masses, ovoid nuclear masses about 4 centimeter long. They borders the dorsal part of the third ventricle. So this is the location where cavity of the third ventricle is present, and these are the location where the cavities of the lateral ventricles are located. So these ovoid masses borders the dorsal aspect of the third ventricle. They have the narrow anterior pole which lie close to the midline, and the posterior part which is called the pulvinar. They are also having the medial and the lateral geniculate bodies which are the part of these thalamus over here. So in this structure you can see these are the thalami. Over here in this area you can see this is the corpus striatum which is present, corpus callosum which is present, and beneath the corpus callosum you can see the body of the fornix is present. This white color area in the structure of the thalamus is the intralaminar group of the nuclei which are present. Outer to the thalamus in this area you can see the thick posterior limb of the internal capsule. In this location you can see the caudate nucleus, and here you can see the globus pallidus and the putamen which are present over here. In this location you can see these are the inferior location, the subthalamic nucleus which are present, and then the red nucleus which is present over here. So this was the cavity of the third ventricle, and here the cavity of the lateral ventricle is present. So for external feature, it has the two ends, the anterior end and the posterior end. Anterior end is also called anterior tubercle, and posterior end mainly forming the pulvinar. So and it also has the four surfaces. The superior surface, the medial surface which is related to the dorsal aspect of the cavity of the third ventricle, the lateral surface which is related to the cavity of the lateral ventricle, and inferior surface which is related to the subthalamus and the hypothalamus. So here in this diagram also you can see the different relationship of the thalamus in a coronal section. So these are the thalami which are present over here, and this one is the cavity of the third ventricle. So medial surface of the thalamus is related to the cavity of the third ventricle. These are the cavities of the lateral ventricle. This one is the central part. Here you can see the caudate nucleus which is present over here. Here in this area you can see tela choroida and thalamus striate veins of the third ventricle. These are the locations of the internal capsule, and then the globus pallidus and putamen, which are present over here. These are the subthalamic nuclei, then the red nucleus and the substantia nigra, which are part of the midbrain. So another very beautiful diagram to show you these relations of the superior surface of the thalamus. So in this diagram you can see this one is the superior surface of the thalamus. This superior surface is covered by a thin plate of the white matter. This is called the stratum zonale. Then this surface extends laterally from the line of the reflection of the ependyma and form roof of the third ventricle. So here is the third ventricle and the surface is laterally forming the roof of the third ventricle. This curved surface is separated from the body of the fornix. So you can see these are the body of the fornix which are present over here, and beneath the fornix in the pink color you can see the thalamus striate vein and tila choroida which are present over here. So these thalamus striate vein and tila choroida separate the superior surface of the thalamus from the body of the fornix. More laterally it forms floor of the lateral ventricle. So these are the lateral areas where it is forming floor of the lateral ventricle. Again in this area you can see the lateral border of the superior surface. Here you can see the stria terminalis and overlying thalamus striate veins are present, which are not visible in this section because they are hidden by the body of the caudate nucleus. So here you can see this is the head of the caudate nucleus and body of the caudate nucleus, and beneath this caudate nucleus the thalamus striate vein and stria terminalis are present, which are in relation to the lateral part of the superior surface of the thalamus. So this one is a very beautiful diagram. Again these are the two thalami, one and the two thalami. This one is the superior surface. Here you can see on two sides the fornix. Beneath the fornix you can see choroid plexus, thalamus striate vein of the lateral ventricle. Here you can see in this area this is the cavity of the third ventricle, and also you can see the tila choroida of the third ventricle over here. Then you can see this is the pulvinar or the posterior aspect of the thalamus. Here you can see this area, this stria medullaris. Then you can see the internal capsule, and lateral to this is the lentiform nucleus. Here the caudate nucleus is present. Then the superior surface, laterally the slender sheet of the matter, the external medullary lamina. Here in this area, as I have told you that the superior surface is covered by the stratum zonale, which is a white matter, and on lateral surface again a thin sheet of white matter is also present, which is called the external medullary lamina. So lateral to this the thick posterior limb, here you can see thick posterior limb of the internal capsule is present, and then lateral to this is the lentiform nucleus. So this is the diagram to show you the position of the stratum zonale and the external medullary lamina. These are the part of the white matter which cover the superior surface and lateral aspect of the thalami. Now we move on to the different nuclear group of the thalamus, and then we will study all of these nuclear group in detail. So this is an egg-shaped structure, and a Y-shaped internal medullary lamina is present. This is the white matter which is present in the substance of the thalamus, and this Y-shaped internal medullary lamina divide the different nuclear groups of the thalamus. So in this area you can see the anterior nuclear group which is present. Over here you can see the medial dorsal or dorsomedial nuclear group, because this is the dorsal medial aspect. So this one is the dorsomedial or mediodorsal nuclear group. This one is the anterior aspect, this is the posterior aspect, and this side is the lateral. So then the dorsomedial or mediodorsal and anterior. Then on the lateral aspect we can see the different groups of the nuclei which are present. So this is the lateral dorsal, lateral posterior, ventral anterior, ventral lateral, and ventral posterolateral nuclear group. And then posteriorly you can see the pulvinar which is present, and behind the pulvinar you can see the medial and the lateral geniculate bodies which are present. In this location you can also appreciate the external medullary lamina which is the white matter tract, and then are the reticular nuclei. Some nuclear groups are also present in the internal medullary lamina, and of these most important are the centromedian nuclear group and the parafascicular nuclear group which are present in the internal medullary lamina. Here in this diagram you can see the section of the brain in the area of the thalamus at the level of the mammillary body, and their diagrammatic presentation to show you the different nuclear groups which are present. So this one is the mediodorsal nuclear group. In this slide you can see over here this is the mediodorsal nuclear group, and in the section you can see this is present over here. Then another nuclear group which is the lateral posterior nuclear group, where you can see over here lateral posterior nuclear group which is present. Then the ventroposterolateral and ventroposteromedial group which are present, ventroposterolateral and ventroposteromedial group which are present over here. Then the different ocular nuclear group which are present, the red nucleus, the subthalamic nuclear group which are present. So most important at this level, at the level of the mammillary body, you can see the mediodorsal, the lateral posterior nuclear group of the thalamus, the centromedian nucleus which are the intralaminar, then the ventroposterolateral and ventroposteromedial group which are part of the lateral nuclear group on the ventral aspect, the lateral nuclear group on the ventral aspect. So this is the slide, again the section of the thalamus at the level of the tuber cinereum, and then there the diagrammatic presentation. So here you can see at this level the anterior nuclei which are present over here, and then the mediodorsal nucleus or dorsomedial nucleus. So color shows you this is the area of the dorsomedial or mediodorsal nucleus, and here you can also see the dorsomedial or mediodorsal nucleus. This one was the area of the anterior nuclear group, and in this section you can see these are present over here. Then the area of the ventroposterolateral group, this whole are the ventral posterolateral and ventrolateral group. So in this area you can see the ventrolateral nuclear group which are present over here. Then these are the nucleus of the perirubral area, and then the subthalamic nuclei which are present. So this one was the diagrammatic presentation, and this one was the section at the level of the tuber cinereum to show the different nuclear group which are present in the thalamus. Then the different nuclear groups of the thalamus which are present and their relationship to the function. So basic three main functions of the the thalamus are that it is related to the limbic system, it is related to the sensory system, and it is related to the motor system. So it modifies the different reflexes and impulses which it receives from the limbic system, also from the sensory system, and it has direct contact with the motor system, receives information from the motor system, and also send. So we will do all of these in detail now. So this is a very beautiful diagram. This is a section of the thalamus in which different nuclear groups are shown with different color, and the color of the nuclear group which is present in the section of the thalamus, it is also shown by the same color on the surface of the cerebral cortex. So this is the medial surface of the cerebral cortex, and this one is the supralateral surface of the cerebral cortex. So this one is the anterior nuclear group which is present over here, and this anterior nuclear group, then it is on the medial surface. This is a cingulate gyrus which is related to the anterior nuclear group, and it is the part of the Pepys circuit. So now we study what is the Pepys circuit. So in this diagram you can see the impulses, they are initially generated by the hippocampus, and they pass on through the fornix, and they are passing through the body of the fornix, then they are going to the mammillary bodies. From the mammillary bodies, these information passes on to the anterior thalamic nuclei, and from there they goes to the cingulate gyrus. They are passing through the cingulate gyrus, and they are passing through the cingulate gyrus to the entorhinal cortex, and then this entorhinal cortex has a connection with the hippocampus. So the information which was started in the area of the hippocampus, this information also reach back by way of the Pepys circuit to the hippocampus again. And very important point over here is that this Pepys circuit is related with the emotional aspects of the memory. This Pepys circuit will be affected in different diseases of the brain, like Alzheimer's disease, like the one in which there is the thiamine deficiency, and this thiamine deficiency will lead to the effect in this area. So this Pepys circuit is very important. Again, I repeat, starting from the hippocampus, passing to the fornix, the crus of the fornix, body of the fornix, to the mammillary body, then into anterior thalamic nucleus to cingulate gyrus, from the cingulate gyrus to the passing to the entorhinal cortex, and then to the hippocampus. Next is the dorsomedial nucleus group. So in this area of the thalamus, you can see this is the dorsomedial or mediodorsal nuclear group which is present over here. And these in the cerebral cortex, you can see over here, these are the area which are related to the dorsomedial nuclear group. So main important function of the dorsomedial nuclear group are they are related with emotion, they are related with the motivation and the drive. Input coming from the olfactory cortex, from the amygdaloid body and the hypothalamus into the dorsomedial or mediodorsal nuclear group. So main function is that it is related to all those functions of the human being that is related to the prefrontal cortex. So it is related to the personality. So the input coming from the amygdala, the hypothalamus and olfactory cortex, they goes via the dorsomedial nuclear group to the prefrontal cortex, and where it is related to the emotional aspect, the motivation, the drive and the personality of the function. So next is the centromedian and the parafascicular nuclear group. So all of these nuclei which we are studying up till now are related to the limbic system. So this is another group which is related to the limbic system, and the centromedian and parafascicular nuclear group, they are the nuclei which are present in the intralaminar nuclei over here. They are related with the emotional aspect of the pain. This is very important. These nuclei receives the sensory input from the spinothalamic tract, and the type C fibers are related, which are the slow fibers over here. These fibers either come directly to the intralaminar nuclei, both the centromedian and the parafascicular nuclei, or either they relay initially in the reticular formation, and from there they enter into the centromedian and parafascicular nuclei. From the area of these two nuclei, then the sensations goes to the cingulate gyrus. So again, this area is related with the emotional aspects of the pain. The slow pain fibers are coming to parafascicular and centromedian. Here is the centromedian and here are the parafascicular nuclear group. So these information and then modified, and then they are sent to the cingulate gyrus. Now we are moving on to the sensory nuclear group which are present. Up till now we were studying the nuclei which were related with the limbic system, and now we are studying the sensory nuclear group. So out of the sensory nuclear group, first of all, this is the ventro-posterolateral nuclear group which is present over here. So in this area you can see this is the ventro-posterolateral nuclear group. So this ventro-posterolateral nuclear group basically receives information from the two tracts, that is the spinothalamic tract and the dorsal column medial lemniscus system. So it takes all the information about the pain, the touch, the temperature, the proprioception, and then these all the information are sent back to the primary somatosensory cortex over here. So this the ventro-posterolateral nuclear group is related with the primary somatosensory cortex and is receiving information from the spinothalamic tract, both anterior and lateral, and also from the dorsal column medial lemniscus system. Very closely related with this area is the ventropostromedial nuclear group, which is present, and this ventropostromedial group also in this area, it is also present in this area. Sorry, this one is the ventropostromedial group or ventropostromedial nuclear group, which is present. This takes information from the trigeminal nerve and also from the gustatory impulses from the head and neck region. So the trigeminal nerve basically takes information from the facial area about the pain, touch, temperature. All the three divisions of the trigeminal nerve, they relay their impulses into all the nuclear groups which are present in the brain stem, and then these information from the brain stem enter into the ventropostromedial nuclear group. Similarly, all the gustatory information which are coming from about the sense of the taste from the tongue through either the facial nerve or the vestibular cochlear nerve or the glossopharyngeal nerve, they all are entering into the salivatory nuclear complexes and the nucleus of the tractus solitarius, and from here then they are transmitted to the ventropostromedial group, and from here these informations are also transported. They are also given to the areas over here, to the area of the primary somatosensory cortex. So all the information, the VPL carries the same information through the lateral and anterior spinothalamic tract and dorsal column, while the ventropostromedial group takes the same information, the pain, touch, temperature, proprioception via trigeminal nuclear nerve, and also the gustatory impulsion through the tractus solitarius into the primary somatosensory area. Then are the lateral and the medial geniculate body. So easy to remember for the L of the lateral and also the light. So these are related with the visual reflexes. The impulses are generated in the retina, passes to the optic nerve, then to optic chiasma, then to optic tract, then to the inferior colliculus into the lateral geniculate body, and from here these information goes into the occipital cortex. Similarly, medial geniculate body is related with the auditory impulses. These auditory impulses enter, there are starts this in the cochlear part of the vestibulocochlear nerve. From here these enter into the area of the this relay their impulses into the cochlear nerve nucleus, then the trapezoid body, then the lateral meniscus, and enter into the medial geniculate body, and from the area of the medial geniculate body this goes to the area of the temporal temporal lobe, the auditory cortex. The last of all in the sensory group is the pulvinar, and this pulvinar takes impulses both from the medial geniculate body, also from the lateral geniculate body, also from the superior and the inferior colliculus, and these information are also transported to the occipital cortex, that is area number 18 and 19. So these are all the sensory nuclear group: the ventropostrolateral nuclear group, the ventropostrolateral nuclear group to primary somatosensory cortex, ventropostromedial nuclear group also to somatosensory cortex, then the lateral geniculate body to the occipital area, the medial geniculate body to auditory area, the pulvinar to the occipital area. Now we move on to the ventral anterior nuclear group, which is related with the motor system. So ventral anterior nuclear group takes information from the basal ganglia. These information either enter directly from basal ganglia to the ventral anterior nuclear group and then goes back to the cerebral cortex, or via indirect group, but output goes in both the way into the primary motor cortex. So in this area you can see this area is the ventral anterior nuclear group, which is taking information both from the basal ganglia, the globus pallidus, all those areas which are related with the basal ganglia, and information goes to the motor area. So the main important function with this area are that initiation and planning of the movement. This is a very important function. And another nuclear group Another nuclear group is the ventral lateral nuclear group, which is present over here. You can see this one is the ventral lateral nuclear group. It is also taking information from the basal ganglia, which information passes to the cerebellum. This cerebellum is also receiving information from the vestibular part of the vestibular cochlear nerve. So this cerebellum has information about the proprioception, the different position of the bodies, limbs, everything, and then this information goes to ventrolateral nuclear group, and from this ventrolateral nuclear group, this again goes into the primary motor cortex. So main function over here is coordination and modulation of the movement. So please differentiate between these two areas. The ventral anterior is related with initiation of the movement, and ventral lateral nucleus is related with the coordination and modulation of the movement. These are very important. So these two nuclear group are related with the motor system. This one, so these are all the different nuclear groups which we have studied one by one, which are related with the limbic system, the sensory system, and the motor system. So I complete my today's class over here. Thank you very much for your attention. The references are Carpenter's Human Neuroanatomy, the 9th edition, the Gray's Anatomy by Susan Standing, the 40th edition, and textbook of the Clinical Neuroanatomy by the Vishram Singh, the 3rd edition. Thanks a lot for your attention, and Allah Hafiz till the next class.